all of you, and I think it's going to be a slightly different session for all of you, different from the technical sessions that you've been having all these days, right? So for the past couple of days, I think you had a lot of technical discussions. So today we will, so this session is going to be more on universal human values. So a very general topic, a topic which anybody can listen to. If there's somebody at home, if you are taking the session from home, and if there are other people who are there in your home also, part of your family or your friends, they can also join the session. They can also listen to what is being talked about today. So something which is absolutely universal. So I hope it will be a welcome change from the technical topics that you've been having. Okay, so let's start off with this disclaimer, so to say. So whatever is said is a proposal. You do not have to accept it to be true. Please explore it within yourself on the basis of your natural acceptance. Okay? So the entire session, whatever I'm going to talk about, it's not just you can look at everything as just as a proposal, right? So all these are proposals being put in front of you. You can examine it within yourself, right? And if you feel that it is naturally acceptable to you, right, without any conditioning, it is naturally acceptable to you, then you can accept it, and then you can explore further on, trying to understand it better. Okay, so this is a first statement that I would like all of you to keep in mind. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about holistic development and the role of education with respect to where we actually stand. Okay. So this is important, right? As teachers, we are all in this field of education, and so we need to understand what the role of education is. So here again, I have a proposal. So we are looking at education as something which will facilitate the development of the competence to live with definite human conduct in all human beings. Okay, so let me repeat that. The role of education is to facilitate the development of the competence to live with definite human conduct in all human beings. Okay, to understand that further, let's just ask ourselves a few questions. Of the three types of fear, right, which is predominant today? Okay, I'm just asking you these questions. There are three types of fear that we normally have. One is fear of natural calamities. Another is fear of wild animals. Another is fear of the inhuman behavior of human beings. So of these three, which would you say is more predominant today? 1, 2, or 3?
Third, ma'am.
I think we can third. Yeah, that's right. Third. Okay. Maybe we could probably have can take answers in the chat also. You can give your priorities in the chat also. Okay. So often we find that while we do have fear of natural calamities and wild animals, the one that is more predominant today is the fear of the inhuman behavior of human beings. Right? The third one is what we seem to be fearing the most. So what we mean by this is that if you look at nature in general, right, you can look at different orders that exist in nature. So we have what is called as the material order, the plant order, the animal order, and the human order. So material order is all the material things that we see around us. And if you look at the conduct or behavior of the material order of things which are made of material, they have a definite conduct, right? So their conduct is based on the constitution. Okay, if it is made of a particular material, a table, if it is made of wood, it has a particular characteristic. You expect it to behave in a manner that would behave, right? So its conduct is definite. So if you take plant similarly, so plant, the conduct of a plant is based on its seed. If you sow a mango seed, you're going to get a mango plant out of it. Right? Similarly, for animal order, you can see that their conduct is based on their breed. Right? So all these orders in nature, they live with definite conduct. But when it comes to human beings, we find that we are not able to exhibit that definite conduct all the time, right? Because our conduct is often based on the education, right? And we say education, we need to understand education as what we really mean by education. So education is something which will have to facilitate the competence to live with definite human conduct in all human beings. Right? So this is what is the kind of education that we need to be focusing on. So the first question obviously is there need for such an education? Right? If we ask ourselves this, right? Just reflect on these questions. I'm just going to give you time for reflection for each of these questions. So is there need for such an education? The answer obviously would be yes, right? There is a need for such an education. And who is responsible to make it available? Is it teachers? Is it parents? Is it some system somewhere? Who is
Government.
responsible to make it available?
Government, ma'am.
Government. Okay. So who is the government? Right? In democracy, we are the government, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So if we come back to this, who is responsible to make it available? And who are the people who are there in education? See, look at it like this. A child comes to us into education at the age of about 3 or 4, right? And then
Yes,
the
ma'am.
child goes through primary education, or kindergarten, primary education, secondary education, college education, right? And at the age of about 20 plus, right, the child leaves. And who are they spending the maximum time with during this entire period?
Parents.
The parents are with them in the morning from say 6 to 8 or whatever, right? Then from 8 to
Teachers. Teachers.
maximum time they are in the school or in their college. So who are they spending their maximum time with? The teachers,
Teachers.
right? So the teaching community is the one that the children spend their maximum time with. So who is responsible to make such an education available for them? It's the teacher's
Teachers.
responsibility,
Teachers.
right?
Teachers. Yes, ma'am.
Of course, as human beings, as parents also we have that responsibility, but as teachers we definitely have a lot of that responsibility. Okay. So the question is, are we able to ensure this education? Are we really able to provide the education for the students in such a manner that you can ensure that they will live with definite human conduct? Right? So that's the question that we need to answer. So for that we need to understand what is meant by this definite human conduct, right? So that is what we will explore into. Okay, so this is what we need to start looking at. So let's start with a simple question. What is it that we really want? What is it that we all want? Something which is common for all of us. Okay. So let's examine this within ourselves. So first question is, do we want to be happy? Right? So think about it. Do we want to be happy? For
Yes,
most
ma'am.
of us, the answer would be yes. Right?
Yes.
We want to be happy. So do we want to be prosperous? Again, for
Yes,
most of
ma'am.
us, the answer would be yes, we want to be prosperous. Third, want the continuity of happiness and prosperity. Do we want our happiness and prosperity to be there forever? Typically, the answer would be yes for many people, right? So assuming that we want to be happy, we want to be prosperous, and we want to have continuity of our happiness and prosperity, check within yourself. Let us ask ourselves, are we happy?
No,
Are we
ma'am.
prosperous? And do we have continuity of our happiness and prosperity?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
So let's just ask ourselves these questions. Are we happy? Are we prosperous? And is there continuity of our happiness and prosperity? Please remember, all these are questions that we are asking within ourselves. So this entire session is about asking yourself questions and exploring within yourself. Okay, so there's no answer which is right or wrong. It is just an exploration within yourself. Okay, so we can go ahead with whatever answers are coming up for yourselves, right? So the whole thing is about understanding it from your own perspective. But just that a few other questions are being placed in front of you so that it helps you to explore in a more systematic manner. Okay. So, are we happy? Think about it for yourself. The answer could be yes or no. Are we prosperous? Again, answer could be yes or no. Is there continuity of our happiness and prosperity? Which means, are we continuously happy and feeling and having a feeling of prosperity? Again, the answer could be yes or no. And often we will find if you take a majority of the answers, it may be no. You may be happy, you may be prosperous, it may be momentary, it may be most of the time, it may be half the time, whatever. But continuity of happiness and prosperity, very few people will be able to say, yes, I'm continuously happy and prosperous. Often there is a question mark when it comes to this. So now let's ask ourselves, this is what we want, right? What is our effort towards? Is our effort for continuity of happiness and prosperity? Is that where all our effort is going to? Or is it just for accumulation of physical facility? Is our effort for the continuity of happiness and prosperity, or is it for accumulation of physical facility? That we go about putting in all our effort, saying, I need to do this, I need to buy this, I need to purchase this, I need to build a house, I need to make money for that, I need to, accumulate a lot of physical facility. And is our effort for that? Please think about this. Now, have you assumed that happiness and prosperity will automatically come when you have enough physical facility? Please think about this also. Have you assumed that happiness and prosperity will automatically come when you have enough physical facility? Okay, so that's a question that I will also leave you with. Again, many of us may think that once I have enough physical facility, I will become happy. Oh, I find that people, they have all these facilities and they are very happy. So do I have that kind of an assumption? Right? This is again a question that you need to think about. Okay, so another question, similarly, is human relationship important? Physical facilities are important. Yes, we need physical facilities. Similarly, is human relationship important? So that's the next question that I want you to think about. I'm sure, well, I don't want to make an assumption again, but invariably, in most of our experience, when we ask this question with most people, the answer often is yes, human relationship is important. So now again, check within yourself whether the unhappiness in your family, if there is any unhappiness, the unhappiness in your family is more due to lack of physical facility or more due to lack of fulfillment in relationship. Is it more due to lack of physical facility or more due to lack of fulfillment in relationship? Do you feel unhappy because you lack certain physical facilities, that you don't have a house, you don't have something or whatever, or you don't have a bigger car, don't have a bigger house, whatever? Or is it more due to lack of fulfillment in relationship? I had a fight with my child, I had a fight with my mother, I had a fight with my spouse, some misunderstanding. Is that there's some problem in my relationship, some lack of fulfillment in my relationship? Is that the cause of unhappiness, or is it the lack of physical facility? Okay, please think about that. Now, let's answer this question. How much time and effort are you investing for physical facility and for fulfillment in relationship? The time that we have and the effort that we are putting in today, right? Every day, for that matter. How much of the time and effort is going towards physical facility and how much of the time and effort is going towards fulfillment in relationship? Right? Think about it. Often you may find that the unhappiness is more due to lack of fulfillment in relationship, whereas most of our time and effort is spent for physical facility. Right? The unhappiness is more due to lack of fulfillment in relationship, whereas the time and effort, most of our time and effort is spent for physical facility. So there's a disconnect between where our efforts are and where we expect happiness to come from. right? So this is what we need to understand. Okay. So for human beings in general, right, physical facility is definitely necessary, but relationship is also necessary. Okay. Physical facility is basically is with respect to our interaction with nature. It comes from nature, right? Relationship is basically with respect to our interactions with human beings. Okay. For animals, often physical facility is necessary and complete, whereas for human beings, physical facility is necessary, but it's not complete. Okay. So we need something more than that. So often we can see this, that when an animal has lack of physical facility, it becomes uncomfortable, right? But when it gets the physical facility, it becomes comfortable. So when a cow, for instance, gets a stomach full of grass, it becomes comfortable. It sits and it starts chewing the cud, right? It is happily settled down. Whereas think about it with respect to ourselves, right? As a human being, when a human being lacks physical facility, we become uncomfortable and unhappy. Okay, but once you get the physical facility, what do? We forget about that and start thinking about 100 other things, right? So for instance, just check for yourself. If you feel happy every day, that you're getting enough to eat. So if you may feel hungry, right? You feel hungry, you eat, okay, you get your hunger is satisfied, you got something to eat, your hunger is satisfied. Immediately, we start thinking about something else. Even, in fact, even as you start eating your, and as your stomach starts getting full, you start thinking about other things. And you think of other things that you can become unhappy about also, right? So often you find that this is what happens for us. Okay. So other than physical facility, what else does a human being think about? Right? If you look at the thoughts that we have, so the thoughts that we have in a human being, other than physical facility, can be classified into these two categories. It could be with respect to feelings in relationship with other human beings, and with respect to the right understanding in the self, or what we can broadly call as knowledge. Okay, it's the two things, two set of thoughts that we can normally find that we normally have. Okay, so human beings always think about ensuring this. Okay, so how do we do that? That's what we need to understand, right? So other than physical facility and relationship, there's one more component which is important for human beings, what we call as right understanding. Okay, so we said that physical facility is with respect to rest of nature, relationship with respect to the other human beings, right understanding is in the self. It is within yourself, right? The kind of right understanding that we need to develop, that is within yourself. Okay, so there are three things, therefore, that become necessary for a human being. Okay, so we have physical facility, right understanding, and relationship. Right? These are three things which are necessary for a human being. Now, given that all the three are necessary, just think for yourself, examine within yourself, what is the priority of these three for you? Physical facility, right understanding, relationship. So which will be one, which will be two, which will be three? Priority one. Which should be priority one? Which should be priority two? Which should be priority three? Okay, just reflect on this. Take a few seconds, think about it. What should be the priority? What is the priority of these three for you? You can think for yourself in terms of what it is right now for you. Is physical facility one? Is right understanding one, or relationship one? Right? So that is what you need to think about. Hello. Meeting. I'll talk to you. Call me. I'm sorry. Okay. So, if you look at these three, think for yourself. I'm sure you would have looked at the priority for yourself now. So let's look at this. If your priority is right understanding, relationship, and then physical facility, let's look at what will happen due to that. So with the right understanding in the self, if you approach relationship with human beings, right, it will lead to mutual happiness. Similarly, with right understanding in the self, if you approach physical facility which is with respect to rest of nature, it will lead to mutual prosperity. Okay. And remember, physical facility alone is not sufficient for human beings. We need something more. We need all the three, right? So with the right understanding the self, when we approach relationship, with the right understanding the self, when we approach physical facility, it leads to mutual happiness and leads to mutual prosperity. Right? I want to be happy. I want to be prosperous. Similarly, the other person also wants to be happy and wants to be prosperous. Right? So all of us want to be happy and prosperous, which obviously means we want to be mutually happy and prosperous. Right? And how can we ensure the mutual happiness and prosperity? That happens only when we have the right understanding in the self. And with that right understanding in the self, if we approach relationship and if we approach physical facility, that will lead to mutual happiness and prosperity. Okay? And if it is the other way around, if what was supposed to be 3 happens to be 1, right? That is, if physical facility happens to be our priority number 1, right? What happens is that because of the focus on physical facility, because of the focus on accumulation of physical facility, you go on accumulating physical facility and it actually leads to deprivation. Right? You deprive others of their share of the physical facility. Okay? And as a result, we don't focus on relationship. And when we don't focus on relationship with other human beings, it leads to unhappiness. Right? So when the focus goes on physical facility, that leads to deprivation and unhappiness. Whereas if the focus is on right understanding, the priority is on right understanding in the self, if that right understanding in the self is driving your relationship and driving your accumulation of or your collection or whatever your requirement of physical facility, then that will lead to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. Okay. Now we can think for us, do we want mutual prosperity and mutual happiness, or do we want unhappiness and deprivation? Right? The answer is quite obvious, right? We want mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. So what we should be looking for is, we need to have right understanding of the self, right? So in order to have that right understanding of the self, so that we are able to approach relationship and physical facility with that right understanding, we need to have a program. So we need to have some kind of a mechanism within ourselves so that we are able to develop this right understanding and approach relationship and physical facility with that particular understanding so that it leads to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. Okay. And we talk of prosperity. Let's spend a couple of minutes understanding what we mean by prosperity. Prosperity is the feeling of having more than the required physical facility. Okay. It is the feeling of having more than the required physical facility. So the required physical facility, we need to understand what our requirement of physical facilities. We'll come to that a little later. So when you have this feeling of having more than the required physical facility, right? So what naturally happens is that you feel like sharing. Okay. So a prosperous person thinks of sharing with the other or nurturing the other. Okay. So prosperity is a feeling of having more than the required physical facility. This obviously requires an assessment of the necessary physical facility with their required quantity. So I should be able to assess how much of physical facilities I really require. Okay, I will be able to do it only if I have a right understanding. So we need to have right understanding for this. And once we have this, we should also be able to ensure availability or the production of more than the required physical facility so that you have the feeling of prosperity. And once you have more than the required physical facility, you can share with others, you nurture others. So a prosperous person thinks of nurturing the other. A deprived person thinks of exploiting the other. So we can think of ourselves, we can think about ourselves, right? Think for yourself whether you are moving towards prosperity or you are moving towards deprivation. And where should we be going? So in general, we can observe 2 categories of human beings. Okay, one is lacking physical facility. They really do not have physical facility, and they feel unhappy and they feel deprived. We also have another category of human beings who have physical facility but still feel unhappy and deprived. Okay. Whereas where we would really like to be, where we want to be is, you need to have physical facility, you want to be happy and prosperous. We want to be at this stage, we want to be at 3, right? We want to have physical facility, happy and prosperous. So you can check for yourself whether you are now at 1 or 2 or 3 and where you really want to be. So when you think about this, often many people will come up with this answer saying there can actually be a fourth category, right? Which says lacking physical facility but happy and prosperous. Right? We may think that they are lacking physical facility, but they may be happy and prosperous. Okay. So now we'll find that as we go through this session, we'll get a better understanding of it. We'll find that if the person feels happy and prosperous, it obviously means that they have the necessary physical facility, right? So that's how they're able to feel prosperous. Okay. Anyway, so think about this for yourself. Are you at 1, 2, or 3? Often we find that we would like to be at 3, but we may be at 1 or 2, right? So we need to understand this a little better. Okay. So if our living is only for physical facility, then we say we are living with animal consciousness, because animals typically live only for physical facility and are fulfilled by that. Okay, not so with human beings. Human beings can be fulfilled by being happy and prosperous on the basis of all the 3, that is right understanding, relationship, and physical facility. And when we live for all 3, we say that we are living with human consciousness. Okay. So we want to live with human consciousness. That is what we want to do. Okay. So now we need to understand that if our focus is only on physical facility, that is, we can say that we are living only with animal consciousness, then we need to transform ourselves to be able to live with human consciousness, which means that we need to have the right understanding in the self. And once we are able to prioritize and live with this right understanding in the self and approach relationship and physical facility with that, then we will be able to ensure mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. And this transformation from living with animal consciousness towards living with human consciousness is what we could call as development. This transformation has to enable this development. Okay. So now coming back to our definition of education, right? So the role of education, we said, is to facilitate the development of the competence to live with definite human contact. Now, how do we enable that? That can be done by enabling this transformation. That is by ensuring all the 3, right understanding, relationship, and physical facility in every human being. Right? So this is what our education has to do. So education, therefore, has to help in developing the right understanding. So once we have the right understanding, once our education is able to provide this right understanding, then we will be able to have a commitment, prepare ourselves and practice right living. From right understanding, we'll have to go through right living. And this preparation includes learning the right skills, right technology, and so on. Right? So while in our education today, we focus a lot on learning the right skills and right technology, right? We do not focus enough on right understanding. And this is where we need to be focusing on now. So that's the purpose of trying to understand this topic called human values and universal human values as we call it. Okay. So this process of understanding itself, right? It's a process of dialogue. Okay, it's actually a self-exploration process. It's a self-investigation process. And it starts off initially with a dialogue between you and me, because I am asking you a few questions and you're trying to answer those questions. But soon this dialogue becomes a dialogue within yourself, right? So dialogue within yourself between what I am currently and what I really want to be, right? What I really want to be based on my natural acceptance, right? And what I am currently. For example, currently, if you ask yourself with respect to relationships, sometimes I'm in relationship, sometimes I have a feeling of opposition. Whereas what I really want to be would be that I always want to be in relationship. I don't want to have opposition in my relationship, right? In my relationship with others. I want to have harmony in my relationship with others, right? So you can say that harmony is something which I really want to be, because harmony leads to happiness, okay? Or the other way around, happiness, you can say, is to be in a state of harmony, right? Happiness is to be in a state of harmony, and unhappiness is to be forced to be in a state of contradiction. Okay, happiness is to be in a state of harmony. Unhappiness is to be forced to be in a state of contradiction. I don't want to be in that state, but I am in that state. So that leads to unhappiness, right? So since our focus is on happiness, I want to be happy. So we need to understand harmony. To be in a state of harmony leads to happiness. So what do I understand by this harmony? How do I live in this harmony? Okay. So we said that the whole thing can be done through a process of self-verification, right? So how do I do the self-verification? Remember, at the beginning itself I said, whatever is said is a proposal, and you have to verify this proposal for yourself. Okay? So this proposal that I have, you verify it on the basis of your natural acceptance, and you validate it by living according to it. So you validate it by living according to it in your behavior with human beings. Check if it leads to mutual happiness. Similarly, when you work with the rest of the nature, with the physical, for your physical facilities, check whether it leads to mutual prosperity, right? If it leads to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity, then you can accept this proposal. So this proposal now becomes a realization and becomes an understanding, and that leads to understanding. You're able to realize the truth of the proposal if you find, based on your experience, that it leads to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity, and that leads to the right understanding. So right understanding is developed by verifying whatever proposals are being given, and living according to it, experiencing it, validating it by actually living it, right? And then you will find that the understanding can be developed. So let's look at this a little bit more. Obviously, again, do not accept it just because it is written in some book, or it's a reading from some instrument, or stated by some person. You will have to verify it within yourself and live according to it to verify that this works. So continuing with our understanding of happiness. Okay, so happiness, we say, is to be in harmony. Again, remember, this is a proposal. The proposal says that happiness is to be in harmony. And to be in harmony at all 4 levels. So if you look at yourself, the human being as such, right, we live in the self, right? The expanse of our being exists in the self as an individual. We are part of a family, so we also have a relationship with the family. We are part of the society, so we have a relationship with the society. We are part of nature and existence. So there's a relationship that we have with nature as well. So happiness would mean that we need to be happy at all these 4 levels, right? Which means we need to have happiness at all these 4 levels. We need to be in harmony at all these 4 levels. Do you live with this expanse? Do we really live with this expanse? Yes, because we live in nature, right? The air we breathe comes from nature. We live in the society, we live in the family, we live with yourself, we live with ourselves, right? So if you want continuous happiness, it means that we need to have harmony at all levels of our being. That is, we need to have harmony in the self, harmony in the family, harmony in the society, and harmony in nature or existence. If we are able to have harmony at all these 4 levels, that will lead to happiness, and that will lead to continuity of our happiness. So we will now look at what is meant. So, and right understanding is about understanding this harmony at all these 4 levels, in the self, family, society, in nature and existence. So let's look at what we mean by harmony in the self, harmony in the family, harmony in society, and harmony in nature or existence. And with that, we should have a better understanding of how we can achieve this right understanding, and how with that right understanding we can lead we can live in a manner that leads to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. Okay. So far everything okay? Anybody has any questions? I'd like to take questions if anybody has any questions. So are we okay so far? Everybody is with me on this? Okay. You can raise your hand or you can just show some, you can put a message, whatever is fine. Yes. So somebody said yes. Okay. So somebody has a question. How can one verify a proposal within his natural acceptance? Okay. So there can be a fault in one's evaluation of his own acceptance. Fine. So when we talk of natural acceptance, we are talking about something which is very natural for us. Okay. So you ask yourself something, you ask another person, you ask the third person, you ask the fourth person, you ask the fifth person, you ask the sixth person. If something is naturally acceptable to us as a human being, it will be acceptable to every other human being as well. Right? So that is when you understand that it is within natural acceptance. For instance, let's take a simple thing as happiness, for instance. Do you want to be happy? If you ask anybody, everybody, every human being is going to say, yes, I want to be happy. So happiness, wanting happiness, to live in happiness itself is something that comes out of natural acceptance. Okay. So we need to ask ourselves, we need to delve within ourselves to see whether it really leads to something which is naturally acceptable to you. Okay. So you'll understand this further as we talk about a few other things. Of course, this whole topic is something which is covered in about, takes about 5 to 10 days for us to actually cover this, understand it, and really dwell deep into this. But what we're giving you here is basically just an overview of the whole topic. But with this overview, at least it should start some questions in you, and maybe you can then attend an FTP on human values so that you'll be able to understand it even better. Okay, so I'll continue with that. Okay, I'm back to my screen. I hope you're able to see the screen. So now let's look at harmony in the human being. Okay, the human being, we can look at the human being as the coexistence of the self and the body. Okay, so all of us can look at ourselves as having two parts. One is the body, which is the physical body, and then we have the self. Okay, anything other than the body, your thoughts, your emotions, everything, right? All that forms the self. Okay, so if you separate out the body and the self, let's look at how the coexistence takes place between the self and the body. Okay, and we'll also look at what the characteristics of both are. Okay, so if you look at this, if you look at the need, right, of the self and the body, you find that the body's needs, right, are things like physical facilities, food. Food is what the body needs. Water, okay. It needs clothing to cover yourself, right, because you feel cold, whatever, right. So there are physical facilities which are required for the body. There is the self. If you look at the self requires things like happiness, respect, love, right, feelings, gratitude. Those are things which the self requires. Okay, and in terms of, so you can see that the needs are of different types. The needs of the body and the needs of the self are different types. Similarly, if you look at in terms of time, right, you'll find that the body's needs are temporary. Right, you're not going to be feeling the need for food all the time. The body feels hungry, you eat. Once the hunger is satisfied, it is done. That need does not continue to exist. It may come back after some time, but does not continue to exist. It's not a continuous process. Whereas the need of the self is continuous. Happiness is something that we want continuously. Respect is something that we want continuously. We always want respect. We are never going to say that, yeah, for 1 hour I want respect, another hour I need to be disrespected. right? That's definitely not going to be the case. And if you look at it as quantitative versus qualitative, you can find that the body's needs are quantitative, whereas the self needs are all qualitative, right? So the needs as such we can see are of different types. Okay. So the question is, are both types of needs important or not? Do we want fulfillment of both types of needs? Yes, we need both types of needs, right? And we need the fulfillment of both types of needs. If both types of needs are important, what is the priority between the needs of the self and the needs of the body? Think about it, right? That's a question that I will leave for you to reflect on. Okay, think about it. Similarly, if you look at these needs of the body and the self, and if you look at how they are fulfilled, needs of the body are fulfilled by physiochemical things, right? Food, water, air to breathe, clothes to wear, all fulfilled by means of physiochemical things. If you look at the self's needs are fulfilled by means of right understanding and right feelings. Okay. In terms of the activities of the body and the self, again they are different. Eating, walking, etc. are the activities of the body. Activities of the self are more in terms of desire, thought, expectation, right? Which again leads to knowing, assuming, recognizing, fulfilling, and so on. Okay. Whereas with respect to the body, the activities are like eating, walking, and so on, and they are temporary. Now, this desire, thought, and expectation is continuous process that is happening in us. Whereas body's activities are again temporary. Okay, and typically they only have recognizing and fulfilling. There's nothing about knowing with respect to the activities of the body. Whereas knowing is something which is the activity of the self. Okay. So you can see that the needs of the body and the needs of the self are different. The needs and the activities of the self and the body are different. Okay. Often many of our desires, right, that we have, we can examine our desires to see whether the desire is something which is for the self or for the body. Okay. For example, if you say, I want a house, I desire a house. Now look at the purpose for which you desire a house. Is it to show to others? Then it's need of the I. If it is to provide protection, then it is need for the body. Some needs could be for both I and for the body. Okay, but you can reflect on what is the primary need to understand whether something that you have is the need of the I or need of the body. Now the reason why we need to understand this with respect to our own desires is, we will see that, right, we will understand that since the body's needs, right, are quantitative and limited in quantity, right, we do not require excess of physical facilities in order to satisfy the needs of the body. Okay, so that's something to think about. Okay, so similarly you can think for yourself, what is the percentage of needs that you have, okay, for the self and the percentage of needs for the body. And similarly you can also question yourself as to think about this in terms of your effort. Okay, your effort for physical facility, of your entire time that you're spending, how much of your time and effort is going for physical facility? This is to be thought about, because we have to understand that physical facility can only fulfill the needs of the body. Okay, physical facility can only fulfill the needs of the body. Physical facility cannot fulfill the needs of the self. Again, proposal. So please think about this. Okay. Now, often our desires, okay, can be based on preconditioning, sensation, or natural acceptance. Okay, to be based on preconditioning, sensation, or natural acceptance. Now let's understand this a little bit more. Okay. So when we say preconditioning, okay, let's take this example of a house. Suppose we say, I want a nice house. Okay. So let's look at what we mean by a nice house. If you say that a nice house is something which is comparatively better than other houses, okay, then it comes from preconditioning. We have this preconditioning that something is nice has to be better than others, right? So that's a preconditioning. Sometimes when you say nice house, what we mean is a luxurious house. So I need to have a swimming pool, I need to have this, I need to have, all kinds of facilities which will make me feel, my body feel comfortable or whatever. These things come from sensation. It's your sense organs which are actually perceiving this niceness of the house. Okay. If you say I need a nice house in the sense that it provides protection, right? It has to protect me from heat, it has to protect me from rain, right? So I need to have a house which will provide me that protection in the right manner. That comes out of natural acceptance. Okay? So if you think like this, for every single desire, need of ours, we can examine whether the need is for the I, the body, or for the self. And we can also understand whether it comes from preconditioning, sensation, or natural acceptance. And when something comes from natural acceptance, we know that it will come with the right understanding. And that will help us to understand harmony, that will help us to move towards happiness. Okay, so that's what we need to think about. So you can find out if your needs can be fulfilled by right understanding, relationship, or physical facilities, or if anything more is needed. Okay, so what I am, the relationship that I have, feelings like respect, etc., all those are all those things are satisfied by means of, they are fulfilled by means of right understanding. Ensuring the right feelings in yourself and in the other person comes out of right understanding and feeling in relationship. Food, etc., those needs will have to be fulfilled by means of right understanding plus physical facility. So you can see that right understanding is something which is common for every single need of ours. If we have that right understanding, then fulfillment of that need becomes correct, becomes appropriate. Okay, so that is what we need to develop. Okay. So when we talk of harmony with the body, harmony within the human being, right? We're talking about harmony that exists between the self and the body. Now, if you look at the self and the body, there is some exchange taking place between the self and the body continuously. Okay, the body is giving certain inputs to the self. It's giving some information to the self, and the self is controlling the body. Okay, the self gives signals to gives instructions to the body for the body to act according to it. Okay, so when the body acts according to the I, according to the self, okay, and the parts of the body are in harmony, in order, then we say that you have good health, that your body is healthy. Okay, and when the body is healthy, right, you have harmony with the body. Now the self has the responsibility, right, of nurturing, protecting, and right utilization of the body. So nurturing the body, providing the required food and other things that the body needs, that is the responsibility of the self. Okay, so the self similarly has to protect the body and has to make sure that you have a right utilization of the body. Right? If you have to, so the self has to take a decision, right? The body has certain limitations. Like for instance, let's say you had to walk to your place, let's say you have to commute to your place of work. Your place of work is some 15 kilometers away from the place, from your residence. So now, in order to go to work, if you say that I'm only going to go walking every day, within the given amount of time, it may not be possible for the body to do it. So, in order to do right utilization of the body, your self will have to decide what kind of mode of transport it will use. Right? At the same time, that mode of transport, you can also look at it to see whether that mode of transport that you're choosing leads to right utilization of the body or not. Okay? So nurturing, protecting, and right utilization of the body are the responsibility of the self. And the body will have to act according to that self. Right? For instance, we know sometimes that I should not be eating so much. I may be diabetic. I know I should not eat this. Your self is telling you, no, don't eat this. But then there is this, your body is not acting according to the eye, right? Just pick up and you have something more because of the sensation. Okay, so then that leads to a disconnect between the body and the self, and that leads to ill health. Whereas if the body were to listen to the self, and where the self is talking with that responsibility, the feeling of responsibility, right, then that will lead to harmony between the body and the self, right, and that will lead to harmony in the individual as such. Okay, so we need to make a program where the self is able to determine how the body can be kept healthy, and the body has to listen to that self. If that can be ensured, right, this includes various things, right? Exercise, it includes doing the, consuming the right amount of food, all those things, everything comes under this. So whatever we do with respect to our body, if you're able to understand the needs of the body, if you're able to understand what its requirements are, then we find that you can actually it will lead to harmony within yourself. And often there's one more point that we need to understand here. Understand that the needs of the body are temporary and they are limited. Often we confuse the needs of the body, which is limited, with the needs of the self. The needs of the self is something which is continuous. Happiness is something which is continuous. You obviously cannot fulfill the needs of the self through what the body requires. Just eating food will not fulfill the self, it will only fulfill the body. If we understand this difference, and if we start focusing on what is required for the self and what is required for the body, and use our time and effort appropriately, right, you will be able to move towards harmony within the self. Okay, harmony in the individual as such. Okay, that's just to give you a brief idea of the harmony in the individual. Now, this is the next topic that I would like all of you to pay a lot of attention to, because this is something which is very, very, very important for all of us. And we find that once we understand this little part, right, a lot of change can be done within ourselves and with respect to most of our relationships. Okay, so now comes to a harmony in the family. Okay, now to understand harmony in family, what we are basically trying to understand is understand relationships. Okay, because family is all about relationship. So with respect to relationship, okay, let's understand this. Now relationship exists, okay, it is there, whether you like it or not, between oneself and the other self. Relationship is there, okay, and there are feelings or expectations of feelings in a relationship of oneself or the other self. Remember, the relationship, the feelings are between the self and the other self, not between the body and the other body. Okay, the feelings are between oneself and the other self. Now, the proposal that we are putting across here is that these feelings or the expectations of feelings which are there, okay, they can actually be recognized, and there are definite feelings, and there are some 9 definite feelings that we propose, which if they are expressed to the other person or if they are expressed to you, it will lead to mutual happiness. Okay. So these feelings in the relationship, the 9 feelings that we talk about are these: trust, respect, affection, care, guidance, reverence, glory, gratitude, and love. Okay, I'll repeat this: trust, respect, affection, care, guidance, reverence, glory, gratitude, and love. I'll also define these 9 relationships as we go through the session. So please undo or unlearn other ideas of the relationship that you may actually have, and focus on the definitions that we are giving over here. Okay, so let's look at trust. Now, let's ask this question to ourselves: are these feelings naturally acceptable to you? Somebody had asked a question: how do I know if something is naturally acceptable to me, right? So look at these feelings. Are these feelings naturally acceptable to you? Yes. Okay. And when you live with these feelings, will it lead to your happiness? And when somebody else expresses these feelings to you, will it lead to your happiness? And when you express these feelings to another person, will it lead to the happiness of the other person? Okay. So think about it. Now let's look at trust. Okay. Trust is to be assured. Okay. Trust is to be assured. You should have a feeling of being assured. Okay. Now let's understand what we mean by this. Trust is to be assured that the other intends my happiness and prosperity. Okay. Remember, all these are important words here. It is to be assured that the other self, right, with whom we have a relationship, the other intends my happiness and prosperity. Okay. Let's understand what we mean by this. Intends my happiness and prosperity. Okay. So let's ask ourselves this question, these set of 4 questions. Okay. Now you answer these questions based on your natural acceptance. Okay. Naturally, what is acceptable to you? Okay. So I want to make myself happy. Okay. Take a few seconds. Think about this. I want to make myself happy. Second, I want to make the other happy. Third, the other wants to make himself or herself happy. Okay, the other wants to make herself or himself happy. Fourth, the other wants to make me happy. Okay, think about this. You can put a tick mark, whatever, within yourselves. Okay. Right. Often you will find that with respect to the question, I want to make myself happy, most of us would have got a tick mark. Yes, I want to make myself happy. I want to make the other happy in a relationship. Yes, I definitely want to make the other happy too. Third, the other wants to make himself or herself happy. True. Yes. The other wants to make me happy. Often we put a question mark here. Right? We say, I don't know, I'm not sure. Right? Often that question comes up. Okay. Now let's ask the same set of questions slightly differently. Okay. Let us ask ourselves, I am able to make myself always happy. I am able to make myself always happy. Remember, both are important, able to and always happy. Similarly, I am able to make the others always happy. Third, the other is able to make himself or herself always happy. Fourth, the other is able to make me always happy. Okay, think about this. I'm able to make myself always happy. I'm able to make the others always happy. The other is able to make himself or herself always happy. The other is able to make me always happy. Okay, if we think about this, often the answer will be like, I'm able to make myself always happy. Probably not, right? I'm able to make the others always happy. Again, not sure. The other is able to make himself or herself always happy. Not sure again. The other is able to make me always happy. Not at all sure, right? The double question mark there. Now, if you look at this, look at these 2 sets of questions and look at the way we typically get the answers for these questions within ourselves, you find that the first set of questions on the left, where we said you verify on the basis of your natural acceptance, okay? Here we are talking about our intention. The intention based on our natural acceptance. Our intention is, I want to make myself happy. That's my intention. I want to make the other happy. That's my intention. The other wants to make himself or herself happy. That is their intention. Definitely they intend my happiness. The other wants to make me happy. Definitely there also it is intention. If I understand the intention of the other person, if I understand that this is based on intention, I won't have a question mark here. I'll actually have a tick mark over there. Okay. Similarly, if you look at this side, on the basis of your competence, whether it is you're able to do this or not, right? I'm able to make myself always happy. I don't have the capability, I don't have the competence, I'm not able to make myself happy, right? Often what happens is, this last 4A question that we had, the other wants to make me happy. We put a question mark there because When we asked this question, we did not focus on their intention, but we focused on their competence. When it came to me, right, when it came to myself, I want to make myself happy. I want to make the other happy. Right here, I put a tick mark because it is based on my intention. I want to make the other happy. But when it comes to the other person wants to make me happy, when I ask that question, I often misinterpret the intention, or I don't look at the intention, but I look at their competence. I look at it and see, is that other person able to make me happy? Only then I will say the other actually wants to make me happy. When I'm judging myself, I judge myself based on my intention. But when I'm judging the other person, I judge them based on their competence. Okay. So, for example, this is typically what we do, right? When it comes to myself, okay, suppose I'm carrying a glass of water, the glass falls down, breaks. Okay, immediately my response is, oh, the glass broke by accident when it fell from my hand. Okay. If it is from the other person, let's say it was your child or someone who was carrying it, right? Immediately you say, why did you break the glass? Right? Obviously, that person did not break the glass on purpose, right? It just fell down. So when it falls from my hand, the glass fell down. Whereas when it falls from my child's hand or from somebody else's hand, it is that person dropped the glass, they broke the glass. So whenever I try, I come late, it always, my response is, I really tried hard to reach on time. Whereas if it's about the other person, you say, oh, the other person just never comes on time. He did not come on time. So I make mistakes by accident, whereas the other person makes mistakes intentionally. This is how we tend to judge others, right? This happens because with respect to yourself, you evaluate yourself based on your intention, but the other person you're evaluating based on their competence. And not only that, you conclude their intention on the basis of their competence. If they are not able to do something, right, you automatically conclude that they don't have the intention of doing something at all. So there, with respect to the other person, we are equating competence and intention. Whereas with respect to yourself, you are able to separate out what is your intention, what is your competence. Right? And when there's a doubt on intention, that leads to things like irritation, anger, condemning the other person, shouting at the other person. All those are indications of doubt on intention. So trust, therefore we say, is trust on intention. It's to be assured that the other intends my happiness and prosperity. The other person may be able to make you happy or prosperous is a different matter, right? That's their competence. That the intends my happiness and prosperity is trust. To feel assured that the other person intends my happiness and prosperity, that is trust. So that is what we mean by trust on intention. Okay. So now if we re-examine that question, the other wants to make me happy. That will be a tick mark because intention is, we are looking at it in terms of the intent. The other intends to make me happy. Yes, that is trust. If I have trust on intention, then this 4A, the other wants to make me happy, becomes a tick mark. When I don't have trust on intention, right, and I'm only looking at the competence, the other is able to make me happy, competence maybe, may not be, right? This is where we are. Where I really want to be is my natural acceptance. What we really want to be, right? So from where we are, we have to go to what we really want to be. So trust, therefore, is to be assured that the other intends my happiness and prosperity. And when there is trust on intention, you feel related to the other person. And when there's lack of trust, there's absence of trust on intention, then there's a lack of assurance that the other person intends my happiness and prosperity. That leads to doubt, fear, opposition, anger, and so on. Breakup, all kinds of things happen because of it. Okay? And when this feeling of opposition, right, you only have when there's a lack of trust and intention, there's a feeling of opposition, right? And that is there. You don't feel related to the other person. Right? But when you have trust on intention, right, what happens is when you feel related to the other person, you understand that the other is only lacking in competence. Okay? And if you feel that the other is lacking in competence, whereas you have the competence, then you feel that you can facilitate the other to improve his or her competence affectionately without being irritated or angry. Okay? And you make a program with the other person based on right evaluation of each other's competence. Right? So where I lack, you can help me. Where you lack, I can help you. We can complement each other. And you can live with responsibility when you have trust on intention. This is an important aspect. Okay. So check for yourself, how many persons do you have trust on intention? Continuous, unconditional, never having a feeling of opposition, getting irritated or angry. Okay. So in case the other is lacking in competence, you have a feeling of responsibility to improve his or her competence. So that is what we should be working for. Okay. Next, let's look at the next feeling that we're talking about, which is respect. Respect is defined as, okay, is proposed as right evaluation. Okay. Let's look at what we mean by right evaluation. Now, right evaluation is again on the basis of the self. Okay, basis of the self. So now understand that all of us have the same purpose. Our purpose is the same. Our natural acceptance is the same. Right? So just as I want to be continuously happy, so does the other. Similarly, our program is the same. Just as I can live happily by understanding and living in harmony at all levels, so is the case for the other person also. Our potential is the same. Just as I have desire, thought, selection, right understanding can happen in me, similarly, right understanding can happen in the other person also. Right? So, the minimum content of respect is to see, right? Is to be able to see and accept that the other is similar to me. Right? This is a respect. The respect is to be able to see and accept that the other is similar to me. So this obviously means that we respect each and every other individual. Right? Over evaluation, under evaluation, otherwise evaluation. Right? Over evaluation is to say, oh, this person is so good. Okay, whatever. Under evaluation, putting them down. Okay, good for nothing. Otherwise evaluation. Okay, calling them, okay, it's like a donkey, whatever. Right? All these are actually forms of disrespect. So whenever the evaluation is not right, it is disrespect. Yourself in your interaction with others, whether it is respect or disrespect. And often you will find that when there is over evaluation or under evaluation or otherwise evaluation, the other person does not feel respected. They feel uncomfortable. If they feel uncomfortable, obviously then they are not respecting them. Right? So think about it. So often, sometimes, for instance, this can happen, right? You have a child at home, and somebody comes home and then you say, oh, my son, he's so good at this, he's great at this. You evaluate, you give do a lot of over-evaluation of your son. Your son will be squirming. He'll be saying like, oh no, I'm not any of these things. Don't, Papa, Mama, don't tell these things. Amma, this is not what I am. Right? Similarly, if you say the other way around, oh, my son is good for nothing. Again, your son is not going to be happy. He's very uncomfortable in that situation also. Son or daughter, whatever it is. Right? You can see that over-evaluation, under-evaluation, otherwise evaluations are forms of disrespect. So the evaluation is right? In every interaction of others, if we are able to see that the other is similar to me, that is respect. And often we disrespect based on many, many other factors. It could be based on body, it could be based on gender, age, race, physical strength, or it could be based on physical facilities, depending on their wealth, depending on the post, or it could be based on beliefs. Right? I belong to a particular, some ism, some sect, something. Okay, some sects that I belong to. Okay, it could be based on these things. So whenever we have, and this could be either based on, these are all based on some preconditioning. You think that a particular belief is what is correct, the others are all not correct. All these are, again, lack of right understanding. Okay. So when you differentiate like this based on these things, that leads to resentments, protests, and so on. Women's lib, gender-wise differentiation, generation gap, age-wise differentiation, black versus white, race-wise differentiation, powerful versus oppressed, physical strength-wise differentiation, and so on. Right? All these are different things which actually lead to lack of harmony in us. Right? So when you look at respect, our focus is on the other is similar to me, the other is like me. So then we find that we are complementary. So if I have more understanding than the other, I live with responsibility with the other. And if the other has more understanding than me, then I become ready to understand from the other. We complement each other, right? So that is what is living with responsibility. Now coming to the other feelings, I'll quickly run through the other feelings because we do not have enough time. So I'll just talk about these other feelings as well. I hope you understood trust and respect, because they are kind of fundamental feelings that we need to understand. So affection is the feeling of acceptance of the other as one's related, the feeling of being related to the other, right? That is affection. Okay. And if you feel, you can verify on the basis of your natural acceptance if you want to be related to none or one or many or all. Okay. So when you feeling of being related to none would mean that you want to be in opposition to all, right? I don't think anybody wants to be in that state. When you have a feeling of being related to one or many, that is affection. When you have this feeling of being related to all, that is the feeling of love. Love is a universal feeling. Okay, so that's our ultimate feeling that we would like to have. So care is the feeling of responsibility and commitment towards nurturing and protecting the body of the other, to take care of the needs of the other's body. A mother providing food for the child, okay, that's care. Similarly, guidance is feeling of responsibility and commitment towards ensuring right understanding and right feelings in the other. Giving the right understanding to the child. Teaching the child what is important with respect to physical facilities, what is important with respect to human beings, with respect to relationship, with respect to feelings. That is guidance. Okay. So care, guidance. Reverence is the feeling of acceptance for excellence. Okay, we look at what we mean by excellence. Excellence is understanding of the harmony and living in that harmony at all 4 levels. Okay, that is called as excellence. Remember that excellence and competition are not similar. Okay, in excellence, you help to bring the other person to your level. In competition, you're always hindering the other person from reaching his level. Right? You want to be better than the other person. In excellence, you want to be good. You also want the other person to be good at the same level. Right? So that is excellence. So that is, excellence will lead more towards cooperation, whereas when you focus on competition, you're more looking at differentiation with the other person. Okay. Right? So excellence is something where you focus on human, you work for the human purpose. You're working with right utilization, you share. Whereas when you're looking at competition, looking at I want to be special, I want to be different from the other, you end up doing things, you do things for a reward or due to fear or goal, but the goal becomes secondary. And you end up doing things like hoarding and accumulation of physical facilities. Okay, so excellence is basically working for human purpose and living with the right understanding at all 4 levels. So glory is the feeling that we have for those who have worked for excellence, which means you have this unconditional acceptance of following the example of the other. You're willing to follow their example right away. Okay. Gratitude, again a very, very important feeling. This is a feeling for those who have worked for my excellence, who have worked for ensuring the right understanding in me, who have worked for providing me with right understanding, right feelings and everything. Right? Who have worked for the harmony for me at all 4 levels. Okay. So this is what we mean by gratitude. Okay. So these are the 9 feelings that we talked about. And justice, we say, is ensuring the right understanding in the self, leading to right feelings, and its expression in relationship, in every relationship, which will result in mutual happiness. So if you're able to ensure that within your family, you can go from not only your limited family, but you can go for the world family as such. So natural acceptance for justice is already there within us. And right understanding just makes us aware that this is what we want to have for everybody. And once we are aware of it, and you're able to fulfill it, once we have the right feelings for the other, and we're able to express those feelings to the other person, that leads to mutual happiness, and that will lead to an undivided society, to an undivided family, to an undivided world as such. Okay. So this is about harmony in family, understanding relationships, understanding the feeling in relationship, and having the right understanding of those, and living according to this. Okay. Now coming to harmony in society. So if you look at what's happening in society with respect to the human target as such, in every individual, we want to have right understanding and right feelings so that it leads to prosperity in every family, so that it leads to fearlessness in the society, and it leads to coexistence in nature, right? But what we often have is a gross misunderstanding at most of these with respect to our target. Often we have misunderstandings like money is everything. So in every individual, we are not looking at right understanding and right feelings, but we are looking at money in, as the thing to be obtained in every individual, which leads to accumulation of physical facility in a few individuals. That leads to domination and exploitation in society, and it leads to mastery and exploitation over nature. So what these things lead to basically is a consumption mode of life, a copious consumption, profit, sensual pleasure, which leads to things like terrorism, war, resource depletion, pollution, and all the various problems that we are faced with today. Right? All this happens because of the lack of right understanding and right feelings. Right? So this is where we need to start off. So when we talk of harmony in the society, we talk about ensuring that education, health, production, justice, and exchange, all these are ensured at all 5 dimensions. We need to live in such a manner that there is a harmony at all these levels. Okay. That. And of these, the most important one is education, which leads to right living. So education is to develop the right understanding of the harmony at all levels of our living, from the self to the entire existence. And right living is commitment and practice of right living with this right understanding, so that we are able to live in harmony at all levels. And if every individual is able to live in harmony, it automatically leads to every family living in harmony, society living in harmony, and also ensures harmony in nature. Let's talk about harmony in nature before we conclude. So what we really need to understand is that often we have this misunderstanding that struggle is inherent in nature. But if you actually look deeper, we'll find that struggle is not inherent in nature, and there's actually a provision for mutual fulfillment in nature. Okay. Again, if you look at our 4 orders, the material order, plant order, animal order, and human order, you find that between material order and the plants, between soil, water, air, and plants, there is a give and take. Right? Plants take from the material order, they give back to the material order. Similarly, between animals and plants, again, you will find that there is a give back. There is a cyclic process. Whereas when the human being comes into the picture, we often find that we take from each of these orders, but in terms of giving back to those orders, there's a big question mark. Right? So what happens is that lack of giving back to the nature, which is from the human being, is what leads to things like resource depletion, pollution, and so on. So what is resource depletion? It's basically that the resource is used at a rate which is faster than the rate at which it is produced in nature. Okay. Obviously, that's what leads to. So this shows that when we start consuming more than what the nature can produce, that will lead to resource depletion. Similarly, pollution is something that happens when the product that we have come up with is such that it does not return to the cycle in nature, or it is produced at a rate that is faster than the rate at which it can return to the cycle in the nature. Right? So these are things that we need to understand and focus on as technologists also, because we are producing a lot of technology, producing a lot of products. We have to ensure that when we produce things, we maintain the harmony with nature. Okay, so that is something that we need to keep in mind. So once we understand these things, once we understand the harmony that can exist at all these levels, understand that with the right understanding, we can develop this harmony at all 4 levels, and we can actually live in harmony at all these 4 levels. That will lead to happiness, and that will lead to happiness and prosperity, and that will lead to happiness and prosperity for all. And it will lead to the happiness and prosperity for all continuously. Right? That is our goal, and that is our purpose of our human existence. So that's what we need to be working towards. Okay. So this is basically what I wanted to give as a summary of what we need to be looking at in terms of living with universal human values. So we've looked at harmony at all four levels: individual, family, society, and nature. And all this is to ensure continuity of mutual happiness and mutual prosperity through a process of self-verification. Okay, and that should be the value of our, that should be the goal of our education as such. So value education has to be part of our education. Okay, I think time for me to stop. I will stop here. Thank you. I can take a few questions.